everybody. My name's Mark Hilliard, and I'm a master here on the cohort. And this cohort is named Mystical Light. And this evening we have Chris's level 14 critique. I'm really looking forward to this. Chris has brought some very special images, and you guys are going to love them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce Chris, and he's going to say a quick hello to you all. And why don't you tell us about the trip that generated these, okay, Chris?
Sure. Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. Chris Almerini, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Nature and wildlife photographer is pretty much my passion, but I do dabble in other areas. The images tonight that we're going to review or talk about come from a trip about a week ago that I took with Bill Lee, who is a professional photographer now living in Tennessee, who has a great passion for bears of all kinds. And so this is at the Vincent Chute Bear Sanctuary, and it's a misnomer because sanctuary is just a term for the area. These bears are wild. They come and go as they please. And for 4 straight days, 10 to 12 hours a day, we have taken pictures of bears and more bears, surrounded at times by 40 to 50 bears. So the challenge was, what kind of story, what kind of photos can we get for that event and tell the story of 4 solid days being with these creatures. So hopefully I've done a good job, and let's get it started.
Alrighty. Now, for most of the shots here at this wonderful area, what kind of lenses did you find that you were using most of the time?
Everything that we will see today is shot on a Nikon D7100 with a Nikon 2-400. No teleconverter, close range. That lens will focus down to about 8 feet, so it could be 8.5, 9 feet to I think maybe probably the furthest shot we have here is maybe 25 feet. Always off a tripod with a Wimberley head. And several of these are shot in driving rain. So the camera has a raincoat on, and I have a raincoat on.
All right.
So, and we'll see one in particular that features the rain in a very unique perspective, I think.
So you were very, very close to the animals then.
Yes.
All right. Well, let me share my desktop. Okay, we should be up and going.
Yep.
All right, tell us about this first image. Just real quick, what went through your mind when you saw the critter?
Well, I think I'm going to start with, when you go on a trip like this, you have expectations or thoughts because you viewed photos ahead of time. You've seen photos that you've liked, or, hey, maybe I can get that shot on a trip. And a bear in a tree seems to be one of those, iconic or must-have kind of shots. So this is a bear cub that was born in January. Anything that scares them, they run up a tree. So the slightest noise or anything that makes them feel uncomfortable, up the tree. So immediately, of course, this is one of the goals we had, was to shoot this. So waited for the bear to turn its head because obviously there's a couple factors that you consider. You want good eye contact and ear position particularly. Most of these shots are all between f4, 5, 6, 7, low light conditions generally, and trying to keep that shutter speed at 250th of a second or more because they do twitch and move around to keep it as sharp as possible. And again, they're moving. They're scared. Shooting manual mode, all these things have to happen instantaneously.
Okay. Wow, that's the first thought that comes to my head on this. What an amazing image. You're right. It does tell a story. We know that from looking at the bear that he is indeed a cub. Eye position. He is looking right at you. There is just no doubt in my mind that you're foremost in his mind. Now, as to what he's thinking, I don't know. He's probably wondering if he would taste good to us, I guess.
Right.
Um, but the tonal contrast across the image are lovely. I love the detail in the supporting actors of the image, the tree bark particularly. And I'm wondering what kind of tree it is. Not for any particular reason, other than these. See these? Don't these look like scratches across the bark?
Yeah, because that tree gets worn out. They like
Okay.
that tree.
So I'm thinking that those are claw scratches, aren't they?
Most likely, yeah.
Amazing. Um, the exposure's dead on. I love the textures of his coat. We can see each individual hair. It is just amazingly sharp. That 7100 did a fantastic job. I'm curious as to whether or not you even went up there with a hairbrush and brushed it.
And we'll see throughout. You know, some of the thoughts on the post processing are when they had, you know, burrs from the weeds or whatever, to leave that, because that's what they look like. It's easy to clean up in post, but I really wanted to leave it as much as what I've seen that day.
Okay.
So.
Well, now the yellow that I'm seeing here on his nose, his muzzle, is this from something he was eating, or is this just his normal coloration?
But as we'll see, if you look through these images, you notice quickly that bears are just like people. They have all kinds of different textures. Some have complete black faces. This one, I found out on this trip as part of my education, that 30 to 40% of all the bears in Minnesota are actually brown or cinnamon.
Huh.
Even though they belong to the black bear family, they appear to be cinnamon color or brown, but they're all black bears. So
Okay.
could have been leaves. They're generally plant eaters, so as they're chomping away at stuff, you know, who knows?
Okay, I was just curious if perhaps it was pollen for some plant that he was nibbling on or something.
Right. So.
No, this shot is lovely. It's very, very difficult to find any areas where we could suggest improvement. I love the angle of the tree going from the lower left to the upper right. The texture in the tree in itself that tells a story. I mean, that's why I asked you about the claw marks. It looks as though the tree has been clawed to death by bears running up and down it. The fact that you were able to catch him looking at you speaks volumes about your ability and patience as a photographer, waiting for the right shot. Now, having said that, I realize that you probably took 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 images during this trip, because I would do the same.
Right.
Okay, so that gives you lots of opportunity to play with composition. And this one is just stunning. I like the bokeh of the background. The only thing about the background, these brighter leaves right here in the upper left-hand corner are just a wee bit distracting. Not enough to really bother the image and the viewer looking at it, because my eyes are drawn right up to his face and they stay there. But just once in a while, I'll just glance over here at these bright leaves. Maybe in post, just darkening them a little, or even going negative structure and blurring them out even further, the background.
Right.
Other than that, Chris, this is an amazingly perfect image. It's National Geographic quality, okay? And trust me when I say that. I have an inside family member who was a photo editor at National Geographic for years and years and years. And she would have taken this in an instant.
Well, thank you.
Okay. This is a solid 3 in my book. And it's really a 3+. But I would like you to run your eyes over this image in a critical fashion and tell me that if you had it to do over again, what changes would you make, if any?
Well, one thing I considered, you shoot high volume images, as you were saying. This was the first morning out there, and without looking at the metadata, I can't tell you exactly what time, but it's when the first series of images. And as I said, I sort of pre-visualized this type of an image, so when you get it, you can't be satisfied. So when I looked at it at the in the evening, and then even now, the things that I think about, and I asked Bill Lee, who's one of the most foremost bear photographers out there, what do we do about those dark spots in the ears? Do we need to go in there and pull out the detail? And we had a lengthy conversation on that, and it was generally, it's okay to leave it dark like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's acceptable. So, the other thoughts I had, after reviewing the images in the first day, exactly about that tree bark, because there was aspen trees as well in this area that, are very white, or, look like birch trees if you're familiar with that kind of look. I would have loved to have shot this at f8, f11 to get even more detail brought in, because the depth of field is so razor thin here. Basically, I'm taking that focus point and putting it somewhere between the eyeballs and the tip of that nose.
Okay.
And remember, the animal is moving. And then I am back button focusing, locking that exposure and focus point, and then just waiting for that time. And that may be 30 seconds, 45 seconds behind the camera, and then obviously shooting a burst, because you don't know. I've got shots like this of a bear yawning, bear with its tongue out. I would have liked to have seen that fourth leg down the tree, kind of a more sprawled out approach. But with the stare, the look is what sold me on, the quality of this image.
Well, I agree with you wholly on that, Chris. And I actually think having that fourth leg out would take away from this image, because we don't see that fourth leg. We realize that he's raised it up, he's clamped into the bark, and he's moving.
Right.
And that makes me realize that what we're seeing here is a personal action shot of this bear doing something that he does every day in his life right now. And I think that speaks volumes. I think having that fourth leg showing might have actually detracted.
Okay, yeah, but those are the thoughts as you're taking this, That's why you shoot multiple shots.
Now, I have a question for you. Do you normally back button focus, or is this something that you did just for this trip?
I usually do that for any of the action stuff that I do, birds, sports.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
This is a real winner.
Thank you.
And this is something that you should, one of these at least, you should put in the CNPA member's choice, and you should also submit it to a NAMPA as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
As Pam told me in our cohort, keep these close to the vest.
Yeah. And that is something that you all need to realize. What we do here in the Arcanum, and specifically in the cohort, is just between us. It never goes outside this. Anybody outside cannot view your images. This is very, very private. And I would be devastated if any of your images ended up out there in the world from this website. Okay, you're supposed to feel totally safe here. Okay, and Pam was right. This is one you need to keep close to your vest. All right.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on, I would like to touch on that background again. Okay.
Sure.
And the reason is the bear is magnificent. The tree trunk tells a real story of multiple bears escaping up this tree. The scratches. I mean, that was the first thing I noticed, Chris, are the scratches. Having the background being clear would detract from the tree. If that background was sharp, I think that the textures on the bark of the tree would have been lost.
Right.
But having said that, boy, I wish I had this one in my portfolio.
Well, the other good thing about this tree, so right, as all photographers know, you look for good light, then you look for a good subject, and then you just hopefully get them to merge. This background is fairly distant, which would always help. So I think even at f8, it would be far enough away to fall off.
Yeah.
But that's for another time and another year to go back there. So,
Yep. Love this. Great
thanks.
work. Okay, not that one. Let's go with this one.
All right. We had 5 of us in our group, plus Bill and his assistant. All these bears to ourselves, and at the edge of the area where we were, there was a creek, and of course, bears have to get a drink before they come in. And Bill had told us that they generally stop on their way in or out to this area, and after getting tired of shooting bears in the tree, we went down to the creek and waited on them. And so here we go. The only rule that they had in this area is don't lay down in the grass because the bears will want to play with you probably. So taking that tripod, I have a very large Gitsu. I'm 6 foot tall, and that tripod will be taller than me if it's fully extended. And then obviously a little bit higher with the Wimberley head. So that's at about 2.5 feet off the ground because I really watched the bear behavior and wanted to get that eye contact. So again, 7,100 body, 2 to 400. This is probably right at 200 millimeter. If I had 180, 150, I would have used it. But here I'm looking for an opportunity to get a clear shot on the face, get the action of the water. You follow this next shot. This is a burst shot. As they pick up out of the water, you got droplets of water. So that's kind of our setup here.
Okay. Now, this was obviously an adult bear.
Yes, big boy.
How big would you say he was?
600 to 700 pounds.
Okay, don't get in his way of drinking.
No, he's allowed to do whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is another phenomenal shot. I love the action portrayed here. The exposure is perfect. Now, shooting a black bear can be difficult as shooting any black subject in the sunlight. And you've got highlights, you've got shadows, but you've balanced them very well together. His eyes are open. They're staring at us. We've got good catch lights in each eye. The fact that he's sitting here drinking and staring at you, wondering what it is that you're doing, tells a great story. I think that on this image, I would have liked to have seen maybe a slightly tighter crop, maybe a little bit less of his shoulders. I love the way you did it with the head down in the water. But if we could take, maybe cut the shoulders off right about here, maybe take this top inch to 2 inches off, and then down on the bottom of the water, maybe take another inch off here. Now, I realize that we do need to leave a little of the water here because it's a major supporting actor in this play. But I would have loved to have seen a much more detailed image of his head.
Yep.
While he was drinking, and just a wee bit off, maybe something like this. Okay. Other than that, everything about this shot is perfect. And the one change that I suggested, that is just from a viewer's viewpoint.
Right.
Okay.
One thing I like to maintain, and when I saw this, is that duckweed in the foreground. That kind of presents a triangle.
It does.
And that's why I left it, because I didn't want to chop it off uncomfortably across that right bottom corner.
Yeah. And it does do exactly as you say. It presents multiple triangles, actually.
Yep.
But they're triangles that are out of focus.
Right. Because that spot's right on his nose there.
Yeah. And because these are out of focus, the fact that they are triangles don't really add a lot to the composition. Now, if they had been sharper, I didn't look and see what you shot this at. Let's pull this up and just look real quick. F5 at 1/200th. So you were working with a smaller depth of field and a large ISO.
Yeah.
That 7100 does a pretty good job at that high ISO, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Um, but that would be my only suggestion.
Okay.
Everything else is perfect.
Yep.
I mean, I realize that some of the grasses are a bit distracting because they cover his claws, but it goes back to my favorite saying, sometimes you get the bear and sometimes the bear gets you. And boy, that really applies here.
Well, he trampled down enough grass so the next one that came through would have a clear opening.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a 2.5 on this.
Okay.
Another marvelous image. I can see this being put in many magazines around the country, and I wholeheartedly recommend that you send this off just for that purpose. Get yourself published with some of these, but consider just a slightly tighter crop across the top and across the bottom as well.
Mm-hmm.
I do understand what you did with the triangles, and that works. But given that they are out of focus and you're working with a narrower depth of field, I don't think you would lose a lot by cutting it right here, just across the top of that leaf.
Okay.
Still shows enough water so that we don't lose the fact that he's on a stream or a lake. Okay.
All right.
Now, how wide was the stream? How far were you from the bear?
Oh gosh, 9 feet maybe.
Okay. Did you feel a wee bit ill at ease?
Well, the uniqueness of this place is you can't back up because there may be one just as big standing behind you.
So you never shot alone, huh?
Well, we were out there by ourselves, but that was part of our, etiquette, calling out, hey, so-and-so, you have a bear behind you, there's one moving, because they walk in complete straight lines. If they want to go somewhere, they're going to go somewhere.
Okay.
And, they don't care if you're standing there and, you never left your tripod because, gosh, they'd knock it over just because they're curious.
Oh, yeah.
So
if they would want to go play with that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a wonderful image. And
Thank you.
Your explanation was fabulous. So, all right, let's move on to the sleeping bear.
All right. How long do you guess I waited for this shot? About an hour.
Oh, yeah? Even with the raindrops? Were you waiting for the rain?
Well, it was raining harder, then it was raining softer. The bear would wake up. The bear would, rearrange. The shot, again, as we pre-visualize what we're going to do today, we knew it was going to be raining, so we were on high alert for a bear shake, so we would get that spray off the bear.
Okay.
This bear is up in a tree about 25 feet, and they have a viewing platform for, school kids to see the bears and so forth, so we had access to that. So that's why I am dead eye level with the bear.
I was going to ask you about that, getting dead eye level.
Yep. So we camped out here for an hour in the rain, waiting on this bear to wake up, stand up, and shake.
Mm-hmm.
So occasionally we'd fire off a shot, it would yawn, and bears have exceptionally long tongues.
Yeah.
And that makes a kind of interesting image in itself. But I thought it looked rather peaceful, despite all the chaos of other bears down below and noises and us. And when I selected this to include in my top 20 to get the cohort's opinions on, I chose the one like this that had more rain featured. And you can see my shutter here, relatively slow compared to everything else.
Yeah.
To capture that, and then at 7.1, I took the f-stop, up to 7.1 to get some more detail in that bark. The good news is the trees in the background are further away, so it blurred out. But I wanted those rain streaks to kind of tell the story that he's sleeping in the rain.
Okay. Well, I like what you've done with this, and I like the fact that the bark is mostly sharp. It gets a little defocused down here.
Yeah, yep.
Now, was the platform you were standing on stable, or was it moving as the tree swayed?
Very, very stable.
Okay. I actually like the fact that his eyes are closed. He's tucked into himself. The rain's falling. I mean, the rain really adds a level of complexity to the image. It helps with the story. He's probably mad that somebody ate his porridge, right?
Yeah.
And he has to sit out in the rain as punishment. I love the that soft bokeh in the background. The exposure is just dead on, and you can just tell that his hair, his fur, is plastered down to his head. Here you got good detail into his ears. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
His nose is wonderful, just crystal sharp with lovely texture. The only suggestion that I would have for you on this is to darken the background a bit.
I think I actually did, and I would just probably need to do it more. But
yeah, I'm not. You don't want to go too dark because then
right.
the background will start to blend in with the darkness of his fur, but just a tiny bit more, because it's so bright, it's distracting and it draws my attention away from this magnificent bear. And in all honesty, Chris, even if you didn't make another change to this image, this image is a solid 3 image.
Thank you.
This is an incredible story that it's telling here, and the rain just adds so much to it. Yeah, you were probably disappointed that he didn't get up and shake off, but I like the story here of hunkering down and getting comfortable in the rain and just dealing with it.
Right.
It works very, very well. So, as in the first image, and not so much in the second image, I would like for you to turn your eyes to this image and make comments about what you think that you would like to change the next time that you're there.
Full body portraits, are still in my mind a mystery, because this would just be a big bear laying on a log that's in, I know it's in a tree, but the way I would present it looks like he's just laying on a log, or she's laying on a log. So I'm intrigued at that fact, because I think, a decision had to be made here where to cut the body off. And since we had an hour, which we never know at that time, we kind of gave up after an hour, and it rained harder, and this bear just continued to sleep, and I think stayed up there for 4 or 5 hours. To work on that, because I had the ability to back away and include the full body. Those shots I just don't like as well. I do have them, but I think that's a challenge for next time to tell that story.
Okay.
Or even to get, just like you said earlier on the drinking picture, just to get right up on that face.
Yeah.
Fill the frame with the face.
Well, I like the fact that you filled the frame with the bear's head and its front foreleg.
Yeah.
And the bear's using the paw on that leg as a pillow.
Right.
I think that you did a magnificent job on the composition of this. And I know what you're saying about getting the entire bear's body, and that might make a very good shot. But within the limitations of what you were dealing with, I think that if you had pulled back further, that the rain would have become less.
Right, impactful.
Okay, and the fact that the rain is there is good too. Now you used a slow enough shutter speed. I believe it was 1/160 or 1/160. And that rain must have been coming down pretty hard, because you got pretty good long streaks from the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I just, like I said, I love it. I think that your little mini critique on yourself was very valid, but I think in this case your choice of the foreleg and the head worked to your advantage.
Okay.
And this is another magnificent image. It really, really is. I see no problems with this, other than maybe darkening that backdrop just a bit, just ever so slightly, maybe 10%.
Okay.
So that it becomes less distracting, and we're centered on the bear then. But again, you have to be careful that you don't do too much, because in the background in itself is going to kind of blend with the darkness of the fur.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Sure.
All right. Let's talk about this one.
Another big boy, cinnamon in color. Again, after a couple days of shooting, you're kind of thinking, what else can I present? And you're seeing a pattern develop of what you're shooting. Again, I had a bunch of bears in trees and cubs running up and down the trees and so forth. I decided to go out there after talking with Bill, and I said, you know, what drives you out here? What's, you know, in your thought process to get a better understanding? And he says, really try to focus in on the faces because they're all telling a unique story. I shared with those that did the pre-critique. You know, I have several photos of bears with real bad battle scars on their face. Missing an ear, you know, an eye that's scratched out almost. So for a little while, you know, as they come walking around or stop and sit, you know, I decided to focus in on the face, that stare. You know, the noses, some are square. The bear's heads are round in some cases. Some are block shaped. This one's a rounded bear, you know, rounded face for this bear. You can see the cinnamon color. Definitely an older gentleman, been around the block, so to speak, 600-700 pounds. You know, 4 to 5 feet tall on all fours. So, but the brown bears, you know, seem to look slightly different and not what the viewer's expecting. So.
All right. This is a phenomenal image. I love the fact that you've got this. This is rainwater, right? Running down his head?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's just marvelous. Now, he's not looking at you. He must be looking at another photographer just to your immediate right.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the detail that you've captured here with that lens and camera. How sharp the whiskers are. The fur, just wonderful. Now, he's listening to behind him. How far away was he from you?
Again, 8 to 12 feet, maybe.
Hey, that is close, man.
Mm-hmm.
I like the intimate portrait that you've created here by zooming in. I love the crop. Again, the same thing here. Slightly darken this a little bit more, like you did up here.
Okay.
Okay, try and get the same consistency in brightness
Green
over here as well. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Because this, all this does is this detracts from the portrait of the bear. I like how he's getting darker down here on his chest, but yet he's light up here where the sun is falling down on his back. Wonderful, wonderful image. I'm not going to even bother looking for dust spots because I know you're too good for that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
I know that you would police it. You know, I look at this, and he is so close that it brings up, there's this upwelling of fear in me. You can tell that he's a monster in size.
Yeah.
I think that would have been far worse had he been looking directly at you.
Well, you know, you get the chance to shoot a lot of these consecutively. You kind of then start to look at those little nuances, the ears. You know, should all the ears be forward? No, well, this guy obviously is thinking peripherally. There's something in my peripheral.
Yep.
So the ears are back.
And that's okay because that means that there's something behind him that caught his attention.
Right. And I think if you really zoom in on the eyes, you may even see us standing there. You talk about catch light. You may, one of them I know you can see us. So.
Oops.
Yeah.
Well, with this, we're not looking at the full resolution here.
Yeah.
And that could be a person.
Right. So that's kind of interesting to see sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But the challenge here in the post-processing is that wet spot right on the crown of his head there.
Yeah, this is tough.
It's so wet. So you get lots of reflection.
Yeah, but you did a good job. Now, did you use a polarizer?
No, I did not put one in there. It does take a rear polarizer on that lens.
Okay.
But I chose not to put it in there because I would have lost, 1 to 2 stops, and it was just so difficult keeping your ISO up to be manageable. You can't correct tack sharp. I figured I can correct polarization later.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, is the reason that you chose a 7100 to use is because of its high ISO capability?
It's a good learning lesson for everyone, and I say this not to show off, but I do have two D3Ss, which are high speed, 11 frames a second, 10,000 ISO capable cameras. I use them for sports indoors and then night football, all kinds of things. I am not scared of any ISO limitations with those cameras. You get on an airplane, you got to think about it. I had such good success with this combination at the alligator farm in Florida, shooting white birds and other birds in flight with this the 2 to 400. I brought my 800, my D800, thinking, well, that's going to produce well. But I know I really can only get 800 ISO out of that camera before the noise just becomes too much to bear.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my heart was, in my stomach essentially after the first little while, because I forgot a golden rule. Generally, all wildlife is shot at the edges of day, and you need the range of the ISO to keep, your triangle of aperture, shutter, and ISO working together. But I knew that 7100 could be pushed, and I was very pleased at 5,000 ISO with that camera. I believe all of these are at 3,200, 2,500, maybe 1,250.
Yeah. Yep, so far. I think this one was a little bit higher than that, but
yeah.
Now, also, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the 7100, that's a full frame body, right?
It is not. It's DX, so this is a 1.5, so it's effective. If I shot 200, it'd be 300 millimeter.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, and it's what, around 24 megapixels?
24 megapixels, yep.
Okay. All right, well, I think you made a wise choice in going with that body. But other than this bright area in the plants, this is just a perfect image. And to be frank with you, it's perfect either way.
Thank you.
It would be just a very slight change in its viewability by darkening that corner, and maybe not enough to even bother with. But I think as photographers, nature photographers, that we are always looking at ways to improve our art.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and I see you as being no different in that regard. So, again, a wonderful image. Do something with these images because you earned them.
Thank you.
Okay?
I lived on granola bars and peanut butter sandwiches for 4 straight days.
Yeah, I can understand. Was there a lot of walking involved in this? Could an old fart like me manage this?
This is probably 100 feet from the car.
Dang. That's just made for old farts like us.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, before we go to the last image,
yeah.
I want to ask you some personal questions. This is something that you and I had discussed previously down when you were in Sphere Zero. And it is, as you so elegantly labeled it, patterns in shooting. Now, I know from having viewed your work and knowing you in CNPA and the type of work that you produce, where your strengths lie. Okay? And they lie in areas of wildlife photography. And I don't believe I've ever seen you pull together a portfolio of bears like this in the past. Is that a correct assumption on my part?
Bears are weak. Elk and deer, I have a lot. But bears, in our area are kind of difficult to come by unless you go to eastern North Carolina. This is, the net result of this trip is I could spend 30 years in the Smokies and never produce a portfolio like I produced in 4 days here.
Right. And given that you were there 4 days, what, 12 to 14 hours a day?
6 a.m., maybe an hour off for lunch to 7 o'clock, 7:30, whenever the light finally gave out.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So And you probably came away with 4,000 images?
5,000 total.
Okay. So the question is how did you police yourself while you were shooting so that you did not get caught up in pattern shooting? So that with so many subject bears, so many images, how is it that you controlled the need to shoot the same thing over and over and over again, rather than what you actually did was look for different types of bears doing different types of activities and waiting for it to happen rather than giving in to the impulse to go off and shoot?
Right, and I think that's a perfect statement that you've made, because the comment on the first one, that I was shocked that was one of the first few images. Just like most people that get to a location, no matter what you're shooting, you kind of get very excited and you want to get into it. I mean, you're presented with 30 subjects right out of the car. You know, as fast as you could put that camera on a tripod, you had 30 subjects to choose. And, you know, you've traveled this far, you've spent the money, you're very excited. So I left, you know, for lunch break in the car, because we ate in the car, feeling like I may have had 500 images in the camera, but I didn't think I had any good images, nothing special, very static. So I took some time to review those images just in the back of the camera to kind of see what I had, what have I been shooting, you know, what was the background, because there's all kinds of considerations. Am I including the sky? Is there branches and leaves coming into the frame? Because as you know, you're behind that camera looking through the viewfinder, you're so fixated on the subject, you don't really see that stuff because you're shooting so fast. You're making decisions. And then the biggest thing that I did, and I think this is where it paid off in leaps and bounds, is every hour to 2 hours I would just stop and look around. What's going on? You would notice the bears seem to walk in the same area. I have a bunch of bear shots walking over a log where you can see their bodies swell up as they stand up on this log to survey the area. So then I knew, just set up there. And then when you set up there, okay, where's the grass in the way? Where's that log in the way? What's in the way? What's distracting from that image? How can I make the background better? And then you find your position, and then you wait for that bear to come to you. And then boom, 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 boom. You fire off your shots because you've got the good light, you've got a good subject now in a perfect spot. And so you just wait and you watch. You're not just, you know, going around firing off as much as you can, because that takes time. So each day you get more refined, and then you're looking, what don't I have, or what did I miss? And it's not so much you've missed it, because you're on a better subject or a good subject over here. There's just lots of opportunity. I probably have 25 to 30 pileated woodpecker shots from this, because flying all around the place are pairs of pileated woodpeckers. I'm like, well, I'm going to shoot them for the next little while, waiting and watching where they're landing. And so, you know, on that last day, I was highly selective. I had last 10, 12 hours, and I really just was highly selective of what I was looking for.
Okay.
And one photo that didn't make it is this bear called Brown Phantom. Very difficult to photograph, but big brown black bear. And I just really followed him around for the afternoon, trying to get a better shot. I had good ones, but I wanted a better shot.
All right. All right. Well, I appreciate the tenacity that you showed in your selection. Your discussion as to ending pattern shooting was very, very good. And we're going to add that as a topic for one of our cohort hangouts as well, pattern shooting. Because I think that that's something that we all get caught in from time to time.
All right.
Okay, so let me get rid of this one, and we're going to bring up the last image. And I want everybody to look at this image. This is as it was presented to me. And your job, Chris, is going to take this image. You bring it up on your desktop. Do you have it there?
Yep, I do.
And I want you to do a full-blown self-critique of yourself. Okay. And if you need to edit it, then show the editing steps. If you don't need to, then don't. In fact, you don't have to bring it up and share your desktop if you don't want to. You're welcome to use it as displayed on mine, but you might feel more comfortable having control of the image while you.
Yeah, because I may have cropped this. I can't remember now. So
All
I'm
right. gonna shut this image down.
Okay.
And I'm going to unshare my desktop. And I'm going to turn control of this over to you. And if you would, I would like an honest self-critique on this.
Okay. Here we go. Let me screen share my desktop. Let me get Lightroom opened up here. And this is a Monday image, so I'm going to go back to the Monday folder here in Lightroom and pull this image up, which I happen to have right here.
Oh, you were anticipating me?
Well, I looked at the instructions here, so.
Haha.
So here's the raw file. This is what we're looking at now. This is the unedited. And let me just go to the develop module and just completely make sure I've reset everything. This is...
Hold off before you go any further. I'm not so much worried about the flow that you use to get to your finished image.
Okay.
What I really want from you is, you know what work you've done, and you know how you got there. I want you to critique the end result of that.
Okay. This one.
Yeah, and then as for telling everybody how you got there, you can give hints of that as you go through the critique.
Yeah, because there's a big secret here, and remind me, please, to share it on how to get these black bears black.
All right.
Because your camera is not going to make them black. Okay. Immediately, the stare. As we see with any animal wildlife portrait, you've got to have the eyes dead on. And that's what I see first and foremost. What makes this image extraordinarily unique, in my opinion, and what I like about it, is this is bear in habitat, stalking the area. It's not out in the open. The leaves have sort of framed this face. The bear's face is in a what we call a power quadrant, if you will, or the power intersection of the rule of thirds. It's not centered. We've got the bear body behind it presenting, so you know how big this bear is. The ears are forward, making you know it's focused on you. Great sharpness in the face because, again, any wildlife photo has to have good eye sharpness and face sharpness. It's acceptable to have the body fall out because of the f-stops that we are needing to shoot in here. But the framing, it's a unique image, I believe, that's not commonly seen, but yet still has that powerful eye stare. The background is clean. You don't see anything kind of growing out of the bear's head, ears, chin. I mean, this can be somewhat distracting here, but what I like it is, again, it's framing in this face and presenting it in a way that's maybe uncommon or different. And that's why I'm sharing this image and was glad that it was accepted by the helpers in the cohort as a powerful image. But this bokeh on the back, definitely, we know there's a forest here. It's been darkened. We can argue about darkening it more. Some detractions are, without shooting with a polarizer, and it's probably been raining, we get some of this glare on the leaves. This is probably a problem here, but again, your eyes are so entrenched over here on the bear's face that you're probably not noticing it. At least that's what I'm hoping, because that's such an intense stare. So I will stop there.
All right. All right. Good job. I agree with you. I think that in the case of this image, the fact that the bear is in his natural habitat tells a real story. I think that even the leaf coming up below his chin helps framing, as you said. And you are absolutely correct about the glare on the leaves and the viewer not noticing them. We are so focused on that primordial stare that he is leveling at us that we don't care about anything else. My eyes don't wander away from that bear's face at all when I'm looking at this image. If I start to find myself looking around, I'm always drawn right back again to the face. It's as though you were out shooting waterfalls and you turned around and looked behind you, and there's this guy standing there looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
And he clearly is wondering what you taste like. Okay? This is a magical image, and I think of all of your images that this is the best.
Thank you.
Because it does indeed show the bear in its natural habitat. Now, I really like the cub on the tree. All right? But you know, that could have been anywhere. That could have been in a zoo. That could have been, you know, at Grandfather Mountain. It could have been anywhere. This screams bear in the wild. Okay? And this may be the highlight capture of everything that I've seen from you to date.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I love everything about this, but I wanted to see what you would say. All right? Because we have to be self-critical in our analysis of our images during the first and second stage of our editing process. And the fact that this made the cut is amazing. I'm going to stop talking for a minute so that your image will say something and pop your image back up on the screen.
Are you going? Do you want me to stop sharing mine?
No, I want everybody else to take one last look at this image. All right. I think you'll find that everybody will agree with me on this. That this is a masterpiece. I just can't envision doing it any better. And no, I would not darken the leaves on this one. We want them there. We want that frame. We want that natural habitat.
Yeah.
Truly a wonderful, wonderful image. Okay, so yes, you may stop sharing your. And if you would, I would like you to grade that last image for me, please. 0 to 3.
3.5.
I was going to give that a 4.
Well, I didn't know 4 was possible. I thought 3 is where we ended.
Yeah, we do. We do. But in this level 14, you have to have an average of 2 or you start all over. Okay, if you go below that average, you get to revisit level 14 again. And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 3s and 1, 2. So you were way ahead of the game on this. That you were never in any danger, but you knew that, didn't you? You knew.
Well, I had a good group helping me the other evening, but truly, I want to share this because this is what I want to encourage everyone else to do. That I felt strongly myself about that image because it was different than what the others had portrayed. But I really wanted to include it to see the reaction from others, and I'm glad it had the same reaction that I anticipated. I had other ones that were safer. That would have probably been a 3 as well. But I wanted to include one that was more risky to see what the feedback is, because that's what I think you can learn from, is really stepping out there. And saying.
Right. Now, having said that, for your next critique, you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone. Okay? I'm going to expect that from you. You don't have to step too far out of it, but I'd like to see something a bit different from you. In the case of your level 14 critique, I let you talk about your best image. On Rhonda's, I had her talk about her least powerful image. so that nobody, make a face at me, Rhonda. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to constantly change how we approach this. And you did a really good job. I was very impressed with not only your images, which I expected to be, and that's just the level that you're at. But I was also impressed with how you approached the image description as you were standing there, and what you were thinking in terms of ISO, and what you wanted to do to make your camera a tool to capture your vision. I also liked the fact that you discussed not getting caught up in patterns in shooting, because this is a big problem that we all face. And you overcame that nicely. It doesn't matter that you gave us 5 bear images, okay? You made each image distinct and different. Each told a different story. I would say that maybe this trip was one of the more beneficial for you to have gone on. And your work shows it.
Thank you.
Very, very good work. Congratulations on a perfect level 14. I just can't wait to see what you do for your next critique. way, way more. and not so much in your comfort zone of shooting wildlife or sunrises over the mountains. We'll see what you come up with, but I won't change the requirements too badly for you.
Okay.
But I do want to keep you on your feet and keep you advancing. Well done. And I appreciate the support of all of you that came to sit here with Chris this evening. That just goes to show how well you all have pulled together as a cohesive group. I am going to go back and watch Chris's level 14, the pre-critique for this, the level 13. I am going to go back and watch it. I want to see how you all interacted on this.
Normally, you'll also see, Mark, I took some time there to show the process of whittling the 5,000 down to 60.
Good.
Then
Good.
To the 20, and then to 20 to 5. So we did spend time doing that.
Yep. But I want to share in that visualization that they all had with you. I want to see how everybody did on that. Like I said, I don't normally do that. What you do in your pre-critiques are kind of private. But I'm going to get to know you all much better through that one. So again, we're all done. Chris is now a strong level 15. I can't imagine what your thoughts are about what you're going to do when you're done with your level 19. Maybe it's time for you to consider whether or not you want to be a master here at the Arcanum. You might do very, very well at that. We've got a couple people that are very interested in that. Rhonda, of course, Elon, has shown great promise, and he has requested consideration for that as well. So I'm curious to see which way you jump. But we'll talk about that at a later time.